That quiet unease sitting in your chest when you scroll through your feed and see everyone thinking the same thoughts, saying the same things, using the same words, and you wonder if you're the only one who notices, if you're the only one who feels like something fundamental has been lost in the noise. And tonight we're going to expose it. This invisible wound that modern collectivism has carved into your mind. The way it slowly erased your ability to think for yourself, to trust your own observations, to stand alone in your convictions without immediately reaching for the safety of the crowd. Because what no one tells you is that the death of individual thought isn't happening out there in some dystopian government facility. It's happening right now, in your pocket, in your conversations, in the way you've learned to edit yourself before you even finish forming an opinion. And the modern collectivism and the death of individual thought psychology fix begins with understanding that this isn't your fault. It's a pattern that was installed in you, carefully, methodically, through 1,000 small surrenders you didn't even notice you were making. And before we go any further, I need you to do something right now. Put your phone face down, take a breath, and ask yourself this. When was the last time you held an opinion that genuinely scared you, that made you feel truly alone, that you knew would cost you something if you spoke it out loud? Show you that you've been taught to purchase belonging at the cost of your sovereignty, your ability to look at reality and draw your own conclusions, without immediately checking to see if everyone else sees what you see. And this matters more than you realize, because individual thought isn't some luxury reserved for philosophers and rebels. It's the foundation of your dignity, your creativity, your capacity to love and choose and build a life that's actually yours. And modern collectivism has figured out how to strip that from you while making you feel like you're part of something bigger, something noble, something safe, when really, you've just agreed to think in formation, to move as a unit, to mistake consensus for truth and isolation for danger. So let's go deeper. Let's understand exactly how your mind was trained to abandon itself. Because the pattern starts earlier than you think. Back when you were young and you learned that certain questions made adults uncomfortable. Certain observations got you labeled as difficult. Certain truths were better left unsaid if you wanted to keep the peace. And that's the first seed, the understanding that your authentic perception of reality is less important than maintaining social harmony. That what you see doesn't matter as much as what everyone agrees to pretend to see. And you carried that seed into adolescence, where it bloomed into full-fledged people-pleasing, into carefully curated personas, into the exhausting work of managing everyone's perception of you. And then social media arrived and weaponized this wound. It took your natural human desire for connection and turned it into a quantifiable metric. Suddenly your thoughts had scores, your opinions had like counts, your observations could be measured in shares and comments, and the algorithm learned exactly how to train you, rewarding conformity with only pretending, visibility, punishing deviation with silence, and your nervous system, which evolved to keep you safe in tribal settings, interpreted that silence as danger, as social death, as exile. So you learned to think in ways that generated approval, to form opinions that felt safe, to express only the versions of truth that your audience was ready to hear. And here's what's so insidious about this. You started to believe that this edited, approved, consensus-checked version of your thinking was actually your thinking. You forgot that there was ever a gap, that you used to have raw, unfiltered, sometimes contradictory thoughts that didn't need permission to exist. And now, when you encounter someone who still thinks that way, someone who says what they see without checking the room first, they seem dangerous to you, reckless, selfish, because they're violating the unspoken contract that everyone agreed to. The contract that says we all pretend together. We all believe the same narratives. We all perform the same outrage and celebrate the same heroes and fear the same villains. And anyone who breaks formation is a threat to the whole system. But here's the truth most people never realize. That system isn't keeping you safe. It's keeping you small. It's keeping you manageable. It's keeping you from accessing the full power of your own perception and cognition. Because when you're allowed to think freely, when you're connected to your own authentic observations and conclusions, you become unpredictable. You can't be easily manipulated. You can't be sold narratives that contradict what you directly experience. You become sovereign, and sovereignty is the one thing collectivist systems cannot tolerate. Whether those systems are political or social or algorithmic, they need your compliance. They need your agreement. They need you to doubt yourself just enough that you'll always look to the group before you trust your own eyes. And I know you felt this. That specific moment when you notice something true, something real, something undeniable, and your first instinct isn't to acknowledge it. Your first instinct is to wonder if you're allowed to notice it, if other people see it too, if saying it out loud will get you cast out. And that instinct, that reflexive self-censorship, that's not wisdom. That's not emotional intelligence. That's trauma. That's the scar tissue of a mind that's been punished for its clarity. And you need to understand something crucial right here. The death of your individual thought isn't some abstract philosophical problem. It's the death of your ability to navigate reality accurately. Because reality doesn't care about consensus. Reality doesn't bend to collective belief. Reality just is. And when your thinking is outsourced to the crowd, you lose your ability to interface with what's actually happening. You start living in a hall of mirrors where everything is interpretation and narrative and agreed upon fiction. And you wonder why your life feels disconnected, why your relationships feel performative, why success feels hollow. It's because you're not living from your center anymore. You're living from the center of the crowd, and the crowd has no center. It's just a shifting mass of anxiety and opinion and reaction. So what no one tells you is that reclaiming your individual thought isn't about becoming some isolated contrarian who disagrees with everything just to be different. It's about reconnecting with your own perceptual apparatus, trusting that you have the capacity to observe reality and draw conclusions without needing them validated by committee. And this is where the work begins. This is where we start dismantling the pattern, because you can't think your way out of this. You can't just decide to start thinking independently while your nervous system is acting weak. System is still wired for collective approval. You need weapons, specific practices that rewire the conditioning. And I'm going to give you 4 of them. 4 tools that will restore your capacity for authentic thought. But before we get there, let me tell you about Marcus, a 34-year-old software engineer who spent 2 years feeling like he was losing his mind. He'd be in meetings and someone would propose something that he knew wouldn't work. Not because he was smarter than everyone else, but because he'd literally tried that exact approach on a previous project and watched it fail. But when he looked around the room, everyone was nodding, everyone was agreeing, everyone seemed confident that this was the right path. And he felt this wave of disorientation. Like maybe he was wrong. Maybe his memory was faulty. Maybe he was the one who didn't understand. So he stayed quiet. And 6 months later, the project failed exactly the way he knew it would. And instead of vindication, he felt something worse. He felt complicit. He felt like he'd betrayed himself. And this started happening everywhere. In his relationships, in his social circles, online. He'd see something clearly, know something was true, and then watch himself perform agreement with the opposite just to avoid the discomfort of standing alone. And the cost was devastating. Not all at once, but in inches, in daily micro-betrayals of his own perception, until one day he realized he didn't actually know what he thought about anything anymore. He only knew what he was supposed to think, what was safe to think, what would keep him included. And that's when the real work started, when he began to understand that individual thought isn't a personality trait you either have or don't have. It's a practice. It's a muscle that atrophies when you don't use it. And he had to start small. He had to start with things that didn't matter, with low-stakes opinions about movies and food and music, just to remember what it felt like to have a preference that wasn't borrowed. And slowly, carefully, he worked his way up to bigger things, to political observations, to social dynamics, to the things he saw happening in his industry that everyone was pretending not to see. And the transformation wasn't that he became some outspoken rebel, it's that he became real again. He became capable of genuine connection because he was actually present in conversations instead of just performing his part. And you felt this before, haven't you? That exhaustion that comes from constantly monitoring yourself, constantly editing, constantly checking to make sure you're not being present, thinking the right things. And what Marcus discovered is that the energy you spend on that monitoring is the same energy you need for actual creative thought, for problem solving, for insight, for the kind of thinking that actually generates new possibilities instead of just rearranging the approved ideas into slightly different configurations. So ask yourself this now. What is the one thing you've been pretending not to see? The one observation you've been holding back because you're afraid of what it will cost you to acknowledge it out loud? You're starting to see it now, how this pattern has been running your life. And I want to give you the first weapon, the first tool for ending the modern collectivism and the death of individual thought pattern tonight. And we'll call this Weapon 1, the practice of private truth. And this is how it works. Step 1. Recognize the trigger, which is that moment of dissonance when you're direct. Experience contradicts the collective narrative. When you see something clearly, but everyone else seems to be describing a different reality. And instead of immediately doubting yourself, you're going to name the trigger. You're going to catch yourself in that moment and say internally, I'm experiencing dissonance between what I observe and what I'm being told to believe. And that naming is crucial because it interrupts the automatic pattern of self-doubt. It creates a gap between the trigger and your habitual response. Step 2. Reframe the story. Because right now, your story is that if you're seeing something different from everyone else, you must be wrong. You must be missing something. You must be the problem. But the reframe is this. Dissonance is information. It's your perceptual system doing exactly what it's designed to do, which is detect inconsistencies in your environment. And that detection isn't a flaw. It's a feature. It means your mind is still functioning independently. It hasn't fully outsourced its processing to the collective, so the new story is, my dissonance is evidence that I'm still capable of authentic observation. And that capacity is valuable regardless of whether my specific observation is correct. Because here's what matters. It's not about always being right. It's about maintaining your connection to your own perceptual process. Step 3. Replace the pattern. And this is where you create a private practice of truth-telling. You get a journal, a private document, somewhere the crowd can never see, and every day you write down one true thing, one observation that you're not sure you're allowed to make, one thought that feels dangerous or unpopular or lonely. And you don't write it to convince anyone. You don't write it to build a case. You just write it to maintain the neural pathway between your perception and your expression. To keep that channel open. Because what happens when you only express approved thoughts is that the pathway to your authentic thoughts starts to close, the connection weakens, and eventually you stop having authentic thoughts at all. You only have reactions to the approved menu of ideas. So this practice of private truth is how you keep yourself online, how you maintain your sovereignty even while you navigate social systems that demand conformity. And I need you to understand that this isn't about becoming some isolated hermit who trusts no one. It's about creating a foundation of self-trust that allows you to engage with collective intelligence without being consumed by it. Because collective intelligence is real. Groups do generate insights that individuals miss, but you can only access that intelligence productively if you're bringing your own authentic perception to the table. If you're still capable of seeing what the group doesn't see, of questioning what the group takes for granted. And let's go deeper into why this matters so much right now. Because we're living through a unique historical moment where the technology of conformity has become so sophisticated that most people don't even realize they're conforming. They think they're thinking independently because they're choosing between approved option A and approved option B, because they're expressing outrage about approved outrage target C, because they're celebrating approved hero D. But the menu itself is never questioned. The frame is never examined. The deeper assumptions that shape what's even thinkable are invisible. And this is where collectivism becomes truly dangerous. Not when it's forcing you to agree, but when it's so thoroughly colonized your imagination that you can't even conceive of alternatives. When the cage is so familiar that you mistake it for the whole universe. And I want to tell you about Sarah, a 29-year-old journalist who built her entire career on saying the right things, on identifying which narratives were gaining momentum and getting ahead of them, on reading the room and giving the room what it wanted to hear. And she was good at it. She had a growing platform. She had respect in her industry. She had the approval she'd been seeking her whole life. But she also had this creeping sense of emptiness, like she was a very sophisticated, predictive algorithm rather than a human being, like she'd optimized herself out of existence. And the breaking point came during a story she was covering, where the official narrative everyone was reporting contradicted what she saw with her own eyes, not in some huge dramatic way, but in small details, in the way witnesses were describing events versus the way the story was being packaged for public consumption. And she had a choice: report what she was seeing or report what would fit the narrative. And she chose the narrative. She chose the version that would be shareable, that would confirm what everyone already believed, that would keep her in good standing, and the story went viral. It got shared hundreds of thousands of times. It became part of the permanent record, and she felt sick. Not because she'd lied exactly, but because she'd chosen collective comfort over accuracy. She'd prioritized narrative coherence over truth, and that choice broke something in her. It made her realize that she'd been making that same choice hundreds of times in smaller ways, that her entire professional identity was built on the skill of managing truth to make it palatable, and she couldn't do it anymore. So she did something radical. She started reporting exactly what she saw, exactly what sources told her, without trying to shape it into anything, without worrying about whether it would confirm or challenge the prevailing narratives. And the response was immediate and brutal. She lost followers, she lost opportunities, she lost the easy approval she'd gotten used to. But something else happened too. She started getting messages from people who felt less alone, who'd been seeing the same discrepancies, who'd been feeling gaslit by the gap between their experience and the approved narratives. And she realized that there was a hunger for accuracy that went deeper than the hunger for comfort, that people were exhausted from living in a world where everything was spin and narrative management and performative belief. And what Sarah discovered is the same thing you're discovering right now, which is that the cost of individual thought is real. You will lose things. You will lose some relationships, some opportunities, some of the easy belonging you've gotten used to. But what you gain is your mind back, your dignity back, your capacity to look at your life and know that it's yours, that your thoughts are yours, that your conclusions are yours. And that foundation is worth everything you'll lose. Because you can't build a real life on borrowed thoughts. You can't create genuine intimacy while performing a scripted version of yourself. You can't solve actual problems if you're not allowed to see them clearly. So, pause here. Notice what that just revealed. Notice if you're feeling resistance, if there's a part of you that wants to close this down, that wants to retreat back into the safety of the collective, and that's okay. That resistance is just your nervous system trying to protect you from the vulnerability of standing alone. But I need you to stay with me, because we're about to go into Weapon 2. And this one is going to show you how to maintain relationships while reclaiming your mind, because that's the fear, isn't it? That if you start thinking independently, you'll lose everyone. You'll be cast out. You'll be alone. And I'm going to show you why that fear is based on a misunderstanding of what connection actually is. But first, let me give you Weapon 2, the practice of discerning dialogue. And this is how it works. Step 1. Recognize the trigger. which is that moment in a conversation when you feel the pressure to agree. When someone says something that contradicts your observation, but the social cost of disagreement feels too high, and instead of either swallowing your perspective or combatively asserting it, you're going to pause, you're going to notice the pressure, and you're going to ask yourself, is this conversation capable of holding complexity? Because here's what most people don't understand. Not every conversation is designed for truth-seeking. Some conversations are bonding rituals. Some are status negotiations. Some are just collaborative storytelling. And trying to inject authentic individual thought into a conversation that's serving a different function is like trying to have a therapy session in the middle of a dance party. It's not that your perspective is wrong. It's that the container isn't designed for it. Step 2. Reframe the story. Because right now your story is probably that you have to either speak your truth in every situation or suppress it in every situation. But the reframe is that discernment is a form of power. Choosing when and where to bring your authentic perspective isn't cowardice, it's strategy. It's understanding that your individual thought is valuable and therefore shouldn't be cast before people who aren't capable of receiving it. And this reframe liberates you from the binary of authentic rebel versus fake conformist, because you're neither. You're a sovereign being who understands that different contexts call for different levels of disclosure. Step 3. Replace the pattern, which means you actively cultivate relationships with people who are capable of discerning dialogue, people who can hold disagreement without turning it into rejection, people who are more interested in accuracy than comfort. And these relationships become your laboratories for individual thought, the places where you can test your observations, refine your thinking, encounter perspectives that challenge yours without trying to erase yours. And here's the key: these relationships don't require agreement. They require something deeper. They require a shared commitment to reality, a shared understanding that what's true matters more than what's comfortable. And when you find even 1 or 2 relationships like this, everything changes, because you're not alone anymore. You're not carrying the burden of your individual thought in isolation. You're part of a different kind of collective, a collective of individuals who've chosen sovereignty over safety. And this is what no one tells you about breaking free from modern collectivism. You're not leaving all collectives behind. You're leaving the collective that demands you abandon yourself and finding or creating the collective that demands you bring your whole self. And there's a profound difference between those two things. One is a cult, one is a community. One requires your dissolution, one requires your full presence. And you can feel the difference in your body. The cult makes you small and anxious and hyper-vigilant. The community makes you relaxed and expansive and curious. So ask yourself this now. Who in your life can you be fully real with? Who can hold your unedited observations without trying to immediately fix or correct or convert you? And if you can't name anyone, that's not a judgment. That's just information. That's just showing you where the work needs to happen. And let's go deeper into the psychology of why modern collectivism is so seductive. Because it's not just about conformity. It's about something more primal. It's about the way your nervous system equates social rejection with literal death. Because for most of human history, those two things were the same. If you were cast out of the tribe, you died. You couldn't survive alone. So your brain evolved to prioritize social belonging over almost everything else, including your own perception, including your own truth. And modern collectivism hijacks that evolutionary wiring. It creates environments where disagreement feels like exile, where independent thought triggers the same neurological alarm system that used to fire when you were actually in life-threatening danger. So when you feel that panic, that desperate need to get back in alignment with the group, you're not being weak, you're not being cowardly. You're experiencing a survival response that's millions of years old. And the only way to override that response is to create new evidence for your nervous system, to show it through repeated experience that you can hold an independent thought and survive, that you can disagree with the collective and not die, that standing alone is uncomfortable but not fatal. And this is why the practices matter so much. why you can't just intellectually decide to think independently. You have to retrain your nervous system. You have to build a new relationship between your authenticity and your sense of safety. And that happens through repetition, through small acts of sovereignty that gradually teach your body that independence isn't death. And I want to tell you about David, a 47-year-old father who realized he'd been performing his entire life, performing the role of good employee, good husband, good father, good friend, good citizen, and all of those performances were based on carefully reading what each context expected from him and delivering it. And he was exhausted. He was so tired of trying to be what everyone needed, so tired of managing everyone's perception of him, so tired of having opinions that were really just sophisticated predictions of what the approved opinion would be. And he didn't have some dramatic breaking point. He just had this quiet realization one day that he didn't actually know what he wanted, didn't know what he thought, didn't know who he was underneath all the performance. And that terrified him, because he built his entire life on being good at reading the room, at fitting in, at giving people what they wanted. And if he stopped doing that, what was left? Who was he? And this is the existential crisis that modern collectivism creates. It hollows you out. It turns you into a very sophisticated response mechanism. And when you finally stop responding and try to locate your actual self, there's just this void, this absence where a person should be. But here's what David discovered. That void isn't empty. It's just quiet. It's just hidden under decades of performance. And when he started the slow work of listening to it, of paying attention to his actual reactions before he edited them, of noticing his actual preferences before he tailored them to his audience, something started emerging. A voice that was tentative at first, uncertain, but undeniably his. And that voice didn't sound like anyone else. It didn't fit neatly into any political category or social group. It was just real, just authentic, just his. And learning to trust that voice, to let it guide his choices even when it disagreed with what everyone expected. That was the work. And it cost him some things. Some friendships that were based on him being who they needed him to be. Some professional relationships that required his compliance, but what he gained was a life that felt like his. Choices that he actually wanted. Relationships based on who he actually was, rather than who he was pretending to be. And you feel it making sense already, don't you? You're recognizing the pattern in your own life. The ways you've learned to be a chameleon, to adapt, to fit in. And there's nothing wrong with social intelligence, with being able to navigate different contexts. But there's a difference between choosing which aspects of yourself to bring forward and not knowing which aspects are actually yours. And that's the line modern collectivism blurs. It trains you to be so responsive to external cues that you lose touch with internal ones. So let me give you weapon 3, the practice of somatic sovereignty. And this is about reconnecting your thinking to your body. Because here's what happens when you outsource your thoughts to the collective. You stop feeling them in your body. You stop having that physical sense of yes or no, of true or false, of aligned or misaligned. Because those sensations are threatening to the collective. They're too individual, too immediate, too hard to argue with. So you learn to override them, to ignore the tightness in your chest when you're agreeing with something you don't believe, to push through the nausea when you're performing a version of yourself that isn't real, to disconnect from the physical feedback that would otherwise guide you toward authenticity. And this is step 1. Recognize the trigger, which is noticing when your thinking is only happening in your head, when you're having opinions that don't land anywhere in your body, when you're expressing beliefs that generate no felt sense, no physical resonance. And that absence of feeling is the trigger. It's the sign that you're thinking collectively rather than individually, that you're wearing borrowed thoughts that don't actually fit you. Step 2, reframe the story, because the story you've been told is that good thinking is purely rational, purely cerebral, that your body is just meat that carries your brain around. But the reframe is that your body is your most reliable source of truth. It knows before your conscious mind knows. It reacts to authenticity and inauthenticity in ways that can't be faked. And when you're thinking thoughts that are genuinely yours, they have a feeling, they land somewhere, they resonate. And when you're thinking thoughts that are borrowed, your body knows. It registers the dissonance, even if your conscious mind has been trained to ignore it. Step 3. Replace the pattern, which means you practice checking in with your body before, during, and after you express thoughts. You pause and notice. Does this feel true in my body? Does this statement make me expand or contract? Does this opinion create ease or tension? And you start trusting those physical signals as information, not as the only information, but as crucial data that your over-intellectualized mind has been ignoring. And what happens when you do this consistently is that you start to notice a difference between thoughts that are yours and thoughts that are borrowed. Yours feel grounded, embodied, solid, even when they're uncomfortable, even when they're unpopular. They have a quality of rightness that exists independent of whether anyone else agrees. And borrowed thoughts feel floaty, disconnected, like you're speaking lines in a play rather than expressing something that's actually alive in you. And this practice of somatic sovereignty is how you start distinguishing between your voice and the voices you've internalized. Because modern collectivism works by getting you to internalize its voice so thoroughly that you think it's yours. You think you're choosing these thoughts, these beliefs, these opinions, when really you're just echoing what's been loaded into you. And the body is how you detect the echo. It's how you find your way back to what's genuinely yours. So pause now, take a breath, and notice what's happening in your body as you listen to this. Are you contracting or expanding? Are you feeling relief or resistance? And whatever you're feeling is information. It's your system telling you something about whether this message is landing as true for you. And you're starting to see it now. Starting to understand that reclaiming your individual thought isn't some abstract intellectual project. It's a full body practice. It's about coming back online as an integrated human being, rather than just a brain that's been trained to process approved information. And let's go deeper into what you're actually up against, because modern collectivism isn't just one thing. It's operating on multiple levels simultaneously. There's the obvious level, the social media algorithms that reward conformity, the political movements that demand ideological purity, the corporate cultures that punish independent thinking. But there's also a deeper level, the way language itself has been weaponized to narrow what's thinkable, the way certain questions have been marked as dangerous, the way doubt and skepticism have been reframed as violence. And this is the most insidious level because it operates below your conscious awareness. It shapes what you can think before you even start thinking. It's like living in a house where certain rooms are locked, and you've been in it so long you forgot those rooms exist. You think the house is just the rooms you're allowed to enter. And reclaiming individual thought means picking those locks, means asking the questions you've been trained not to ask, means using words in ways you've been told are wrong or harmful or dangerous, not to be contrary, but to see what's actually there, to test whether the boundaries you've accepted are protecting you or imprisoning you. And this brings us to weapon 4, the practice of dangerous questions. And this is the most powerful tool I'm going to give you because it directly targets the mechanism that keeps you trapped. Step 1. Recognize the trigger, which is that feeling of anxiety or guilt when a question occurs to you that you immediately know you're not supposed to ask. When your curiosity bumps up against an invisible boundary, and instead of crossing it, you redirect. You tell yourself that question isn't important, isn't relevant, isn't worth the trouble. And that moment of self-censorship, that's the trigger, that's where your sovereignty is being surrendered. Step 2, reframe the story. Because the story you've been given is that some questions are dangerous because they lead to harm, because they're rooted in prejudice, because asking them makes you a bad person. But the reframe is that questions are how you navigate reality. They're your primary tool for understanding what's true. And a question can't be dangerous. Only the actions you take after getting answers can be dangerous. And when you're not allowed to ask questions, you're not being protected, you're being controlled. You're being kept in a state of enforced ignorance that benefits someone, but it isn't you. Step 3. Replace the pattern, which means you start asking the dangerous questions in that private space we talked about earlier. You write them down. You let yourself wonder about the things you're not supposed to wonder about, and you don't do this to confirm any particular answer. You do it to maintain your capacity for curiosity, to keep your mind flexible, to refuse the narrowing of your awareness that modern collectivism requires. And here's what you'll discover when you start doing this. Most of the questions you thought were dangerous aren't actually dangerous at all. They're just inconvenient to the narratives you've been given. They're just threatening to the systems that require your compliance. And some of those questions will lead you to answers that challenge what you believe. And that's good. That's growth. That's what thinking is supposed to do. It's supposed to update your models of reality, not just confirm them. And some of those questions won't have answers at all. They'll just open up space for more questions, for deeper uncertainty, for the honest admission that reality is more complex than any narrative can capture, and that's good too. That's intellectual humility. That's the opposite of the false certainty that collectivism peddles, because collectivism always promises certainty. It always offers simple answers to complex questions. It always knows who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. And that certainty is seductive. It feels safe. It feels like solid ground. But it's not ground, it's a cage. It's a way of flattening reality until it's manageable, until it fits the narrative, until you don't have to think anymore. You just have to agree. And the cost of that certainty is your capacity for actual thought, for genuine inquiry, for the kind of rigorous questioning that might lead somewhere unexpected. And I need you to understand that this isn't about becoming a skeptic who believes nothing. It's about becoming a free thinker who questions everything, including your own conclusions, including the answers you want to be true, including the beliefs that make you comfortable. Feel good about yourself, because that's what individual thought actually requires. It requires you to hold your own ideas lightly enough that you can examine them, test them, potentially abandon them if they don't hold up. And most people can't do that. Most people mistake their beliefs for their identity. So questioning the beliefs feels like self-destruction. And that's why modern collectivism is so effective. It weaponizes identity. It tells you that your thoughts aren't just thoughts. They're proof of your goodness, proof of your belonging, proof of who you are. And if you question them, you're questioning your right to exist. But here's the truth. You are not your thoughts. You are not your beliefs. You are not your opinions. You are the awareness that has thoughts and beliefs and opinions. And that awareness is free. It's sovereign. It can't be threatened by inquiry because it isn't made of ideas. It's made of consciousness itself. And when you understand that, when get that, the fear of thinking independently starts to dissolve because you're not risking yourself when you question a belief. You're just updating your mental models. You're just refining your understanding. You're just doing what minds are supposed to do. And this is where we come to the integration. This is where all four weapons start working together, because the practice of private truth gives you a space to think authentically. The practice of discerning dialogue gives you relationships that can hold your authenticity. The practice of somatic sovereignty gives you a body-based compass for navigating between authentic and borrowed thoughts. And the practice of dangerous questions gives you the courage to keep expanding what you're willing to think about. And when these four practices become habits, when they're just part of how you operate, something remarkable happens. You stop being afraid of your own mind. You stop needing the collective to validate your perceptions. You start trusting yourself in a way that makes you both more independent and more capable of genuine connection. Because here's the paradox. The more you reclaim your individual thought, the more you become capable of real intimacy, real collaboration, real community. Because you're bringing your actual self to those interactions instead of a carefully curated performance. And people can feel the difference. They can sense when they're with someone who's real versus someone who's performing. And the relationships you build from that place of authenticity might be fewer, but they're deeper. They're based on actual mutual recognition rather than shared performance. And this is the freedom that awaits you on the other side of this work. Not the
freedom to be right all the time, not the freedom to never doubt yourself, but the freedom to be real, to think your own thoughts,
to draw your own conclusions, to stand in your own experience without immediately reaching for validation. And that freedom is what modern collectivism has been slowly stealing from you. One small surrender at a time, one social punishment at a time, one algorithm-enforced conformity at a time, until you forgot what it felt like to be sovereign in your own consciousness. But you're remembering now, aren't you? You're feeling something shift as you listen to this. A recognition, a remembering of who you were before you learned to perform, before you learned to edit, before you learned that your authentic perception was less important than social harmony. And I want you to know that reclaiming that sovereignty isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. It's 1,000 small choices to trust yourself, to honor your observations, to speak your truth when the context can hold it, and to protect it when the context can't. And some days you'll do this well, and some days you'll fall back into old patterns, and that's okay. That's not failure. That's just being human. But the trajectory is what matters, the overall direction of your life. And if that direction is toward greater authenticity, greater sovereignty, greater capacity for individual thought, then everything else will follow. The right relationships will emerge, the right opportunities will appear, the right life will unfold, because you'll be making choices from your actual values rather than from what you think you're supposed to value. And there's a power in that, a clarity, a sense of coherence that nothing else can provide. So let me leave you with this. Tonight, before you go to sleep, I want you to write down one true thing, one observation you've been holding back, one thought you've been afraid to think. Just write it in.
At private space where no one will see it, not to do anything with it, not to build a case for it, just to acknowledge that it's yours, that it exists, that your mind is still capable of generating thoughts that don't come from the collective. And then tomorrow, I want you to notice one moment where you feel the pressure to agree, where you feel that familiar pull to conform. And I want you to pause just for a second, just long enough to feel what's true for you before you respond. You don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to cause a scene. Just feel it. Just notice the gap between what's true for you and what's safe to say. And keep doing that. Keep creating those small gaps, those small spaces for your authentic thought to exist, even if only privately, even if only for a moment. Because those gaps are where your sovereignty lives. That's where your freedom is hiding. And the more you practice finding it, the easier it becomes, the more natural it feels. Until one day you realize you're not performing anymore. You're not editing anymore. You're just thinking, just observing, just being the sovereign consciousness you were always meant to be. And yes, you'll lose some things. Some people won't understand. Some opportunities will close. Some of the easy belonging you've gotten used to will disappear. But what you'll gain is worth everything you'll lose. You'll gain yourself back, your mind back, your dignity back, your capacity to look at your life and know that it's actually yours, that your thoughts are yours, that your choices are yours, that you're not just a very sophisticated algorithm responding to social inputs. You're a human being with agency and sovereignty and the sacred right to think your own thoughts. And that right is under attack. Make no mistake, modern collectivism wants you compliant, wants you predictable, wants you to mistake consensus for truth and isolation for danger. But you're not compliant anymore. You're not predictable anymore. You're awake, you're aware. You're starting to see the pattern. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to the comfortable blindness you had before. And that's both a burden and a gift. The burden is that you now have to carry the weight of your own sovereignty. You can't outsource it anymore. You can't hide in the crowd anymore. You have to stand in your own authority.
And that's lonely sometimes. It's hard sometimes. It requires more courage than conformity ever did. But the gift is that your life becomes yours. Your thoughts become yours. Your voice becomes yours. And nothing in this world is more valuable than that. So take it, claim it, practice it, protect it, and watch as everything in your life starts
To reorganize around your authenticity, as the right people start appearing, as the right opportunities start emerging, as you start building something real, instead of just maintaining something performative. And you'll look back on this moment, this choice to reclaim your individual thought, as the moment everything changed. As the moment you stopped being a passenger in your own life and became the author. And that's what I want for you. That's what this whole journey has been about. Not teaching you what to think, but reminding you that you can think, that you have that capacity, that it's your birthright. And modern collectivism can try to take it, can punish you for using it, can make you afraid of it, but it can't actually destroy it unless you let it, unless you surrender it, unless you agree to stop thinking in exchange for the comfort of belonging. And you're not making that trade anymore. You're choosing sovereignty over safety, authenticity over approval, truth over comfort. And that choice, that commitment, that's what's going to set you free. That's what's going to end the modern collectivism and the death of individual thought pattern tonight. Not because the external pressure will disappear, but because you'll stop letting it determine what you're allowed to think, what you're allowed to see, what you're allowed to believe, and you'll start trusting yourself again, trusting your observations, trusting your conclusions, trusting that you have the capacity to navigate reality without needing the crowd to validate every step. And that trust, that sovereignty, that's the foundation of everything else. That's what makes a life worth living. That's what makes you free. So go forward with this. Practice it, embody it, become it, and know that every time you choose your authentic thought over the approved thought, every time you honor your perception over the collective narrative, every time you stand alone in your truth, even when it's uncomfortable, you're not just freeing yourself. You're modeling freedom for everyone who's watching, everyone who's been too afraid to break formation, everyone who's been waiting for permission to think their own thoughts. And you don't need permission. You never did. You just needed to remember that your mind is yours. Your consciousness is yours. Your sovereignty is yours. And nothing and no one can take that from you unless you give it away. So stop giving it away. Reclaim it, guard it, use it, and watch as your whole life transforms from the inside out, as you become the person you were always meant to be before the world taught you to be someone else. And that person is still there, still waiting, still sovereign, still free, still capable of authentic individual thought. And tonight, right now, you're finally ready to let them emerge.